Ow, too hot. Hello and welcome back. Thanks for joining. My name is Berit and today you see me sitting in front of my bookshelf, which feels kind of weird because usually I'm sitting on my sofa, but today we're gonna do a book tag, which is why I'm sitting here instead of to my left on the sofa. And also I thought I could try not to sit like Gollum when I record my videos. Might be good for my back. So the other day I was browsing on the internet to kind of find out what a book tag is, because I'm not sure I understand it, but also I'm not sure that it's as complicated as I make it in my head. But anyway, I came across a blog, which I will link down below, where I found a book tag that looked kind of fun, which was called the alphabetical book tag. The alphabetical book tag basically works just as you think it does, because for every letter in the alphabet you look at your bookshelf and you see if you have a book that starts with this letter, where the title starts with this letter. The only rule is that articles don't count. I have made a list beforehand because I really don't want you to sit through me staring blankly at my bookshelf, and I also don't want me to sit through editing out all my and staring at my bookshelf blankly, because that wouldn't be very much fun. So we'll just start with the letter A. Oh no, before we start, I have 24 out of the 26 letters, which was more than I expected, to be honest. So we'll start with the letter A, and the fun part about this is, I mean, I made the list beforehand, but I will just take the books out of the shelf so that I don't have like two book piles in front of me for the whole video. So now we'll start with A, and for that I have As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. I haven't read this book yet. I bought it in some kind of sale. I don't really remember it. I 100% bought this book because there is a band called As I Lay Dying. I don't even listen to that band very much, but that was my motivation for purchasing this book, and I think I will read it soon. I kind of feel like I want to. For letter B, I have, where is it? There. Blood and Gold by Anne Rice. This is a book that is pretty high on my TBR. I bought it recently after I had read The Vampire Amant, because this is also part of the Vampire Chronicles, and this is about Marius, who is the maker of Amant. And if you don't know a lot about the Vampire Chronicles, this doesn't make sense to you. But anyway, this is a vampire book that I really want to read soon. I cannot wait. And also I think that the cover is beautiful, which was why I bought this edition. For C, I have Circe, which I have read in the beginning of this year. I found it okay. Like, it was fun. I liked the last third very much. Other than that, yeah, it was okay. It was a good read, but probably not the most memorable in my life. Okay. For D, I have Dune, which I will probably talk a lot more about in the future, because I already want to reread this, and I only finished this in January, and this was a massive read, but I loved it. I think it's such a good book. I'm reading the third part now with my book club friend. Although I'm not even finished with the series, not even with the first half of it, I already want to reread this, so this was really good. For E, I had problems coming up with a book for E. I have a book that starts with E, which is called Evna. This is a Norwegian book. I haven't read it. I found this for free in a box with 3 books. This is the third part of a Norwegian fantasy series. The series is called The Raven Rings. I think it has not been translated to English yet, but I hope it will get translated, because I started to read the first book in 2019. I didn't finish it, but that was not because I didn't like it. That was because reading this much book in Norwegian was kind of intimidating, and I think I wasn't really up for the challenge. But the book was good, and I thought, you know, in case I will read this again, because I probably will, I have the third one here and I found it for free, and it's also a hardback. I don't have many hardbacks, so because I'm usually way too greedy to pay for those. I also find them less practical than paperbacks. F. We all know what I'm gonna choose for F. There you are. Fight Club. There's not much to say about this book because pretty much everybody knows the film. But even if you know the film, read the book. I always laugh a lot when I read this. I think I said it in my first video, but this is a really good book to read if you are very pissed off by everyone and everything. Then you have to read this. G. For G, I have another book that I haven't read, which is The Grapes of Wrath. I found this at the used bookstore, or the used store, like the second-hand store in town, which has books. The Grapes of Wrath I bought 100% because of The Simpsons. Because there is this scene where they have a diorama competition, and Nelson Muntz has a diorama about the Grapes of Wrath. Coming to letter H, I have several books actually that start with H, but I chose The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This is a dystopian novel you have probably heard of. I guess you have either read this book or watched the Netflix show, I guess it was. I haven't watched it, but I have a friend who a few years ago told me how much she liked this book, and I saw it in a bookstore. I think it was on my way to Germany, and I picked it up, and it was a good read. It was pretty interesting because it takes place in like the very near future. And I felt that some of the things that have happened in the USA here, which have led to this dystopian kind of state, some of those seemed not too illogical actually. Some of the developments were kind of near enough to reality that I was kind of scared that something like this might actually happen. The novel was not really as I had expected, but I'm not sure what I had expected, but it was good. And I really like the cover. I think it's beautiful. For I actually have a non-fiction book, which is Inferior. I haven't read this one. I got it for Christmas, and this is about how science has neglected women, I think. It says on the back, Inferior challenges our preconceptions about men and women, investigating the ferocious gender wars that burn in biology, psychology, and anthropology. I haven't been in the right mindset to read this yet, but I'm looking forward to doing so because I think this book will be extremely interesting to read. Probably also infuriating, but interestingly so. Moving on to J. I didn't think I would have a book for J. I actually have two. I chose on my list Julius Caesar by Shakespeare. I bought this at like a super monster sale at the bookshop at my university. So it cost me like $3, something like that, like 30 kroner. I haven't read it, but I have read several Shakespeare plays, and I really like the Ardent Shakespeare editions because they have a lot of footnotes, they have an introduction and appendix. everything that helps you understand this. And I have several other Shakespeare plays in this edition. So I thought it would also fit into the collection. The other plays are, however, not here. Moving on to K, I have a book with K. This is Kingdom, or The Kingdom of the Gods, which is a Korean manhwa. And this is the basis for the Netflix show Kingdom, which you might have watched. The story is pretty different, but I absolutely loved it. It feels like there are more volumes to come. I hope that there are, because this feels very much like an exposition. But I think the story so far is very interesting and pretty different from the Netflix show, but I also absolutely enjoyed the Netflix show. And also the artwork here is so beautiful, because you have like this like typical, more or less typical manga style in here, but then you also have pictures, and I'm just looking for a specific one, where you have almost, it feels almost Van Gogh like elements are in those pictures, which is extremely beautiful. Like, for example, this like chapter cover picture, it's just stunning. But in general, the artwork here is so good. Okay. Moving on to L, another book that I haven't read, Little Women. And I haven't read it, but you can guess why I bought it. Because of the film, which I loved. M. We're kind of halfway through now. M, Mouse. Comic book classic about the Shoah, about the Holocaust. Super impressive comic book. I recommend to read it. It is so good. N. We have Noli Me Tangere, I don't know. Filipino classic, which I want to read in May. I don't know what it's about actually, but I want to read it. I didn't think I have a book for O. Turns out I have two, and the one that I'm showing you is Out of the Silent Planet by C.S. Lewis, which I found for 10 kroner, so €1, which was cool because I absolutely love this edition. It is so psychedelic. This is a science fiction novel, the first in a series. I think I'll read this one soon, and I'm looking forward to it. I haven't read Narnia because this is by the author of Narnia, but I kind of hope I like it because I didn't like the Narnia films. Could be just the films, but I'm not sure that I like the story itself, so we'll see how this goes then. Oh. P. I have Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I don't think I have to say much about this book. I read it last spring and I super much enjoyed it. It was such a fun read. I kind of hadn't expected to laugh as much as I did in this book because it's very satirical, very sharp sense of humor in there. Very good. Q. I also didn't think that I would have a book for Q, but I have one, which I also want to read soon. I basically want to read everything soon, I guess. The Queen of the Damned by Anne Rice. Also part of the Vampire Chronicles. This has also been made into a film, which I have not watched, so I'm completely unspoilered. I want to read it soon, but the only thing that kind of irritates me with this version is that The letters are so small and the margins of the pages are basically non-existent. R. I have a book for that, which is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Haven't read this one either. I kind of bought this because of work-related things, because I work with eco stuff and environmental stuff in my PhD project. So I think I will have to read this at some point because it's very known. And also it's post-apocalyptic kind of, and I kind of like that stuff. So it's on my list of books that I want to read. S. Yes. For S, I have a non-fiction book, which is Sitting is the New Smoking by Kelly Starrett. I have read this baby more than once because you can just use it as like a, you can just look up the parts that interest you or that you find you want to read again. This book is super interesting because it explains a lot about how the human body works and why sitting is not exactly healthy, how you can like mobilize your body, how you can have a more mobility-oriented workspace, which is very cool. It has a lot of practical tips, and I also feel that I have learned a bit about, anatomy and especially about the spine. I still sit like Gollum a lot, but less now that I have read this book. Tea. For tea, I have another Norwegian book, which I also bought in a super sale, which is called Tante Ulrikkes Vei. This is very popular in Norway, I think, or it was when it came out, but it's a relatively new book. This is basically about immigrants in Oslo, or immigrants in Norway, and about how they try to find their way in Norway, I guess, in the Norwegian society. I don't know a lot about it. I basically bought it because I thought, well, I might want to give this a try. And I have heard zero bad things about this book, so looking forward to it. For you, I have a German, well, it's a Norwegian book, but I have it in German, but it also exists in English, and it is Years, I think is the English title. The German title is Unjahre by Knut Falkbakken. This is an eco novel, or what we today would call cli-fi, climate fiction. It is from the 70s, and I think, if I remember correctly, it was one of the very first eco novels, like cli-fi novels. I have read it about halfway through. Oh yeah, there. Not even. I came to page 200. The story is not uninteresting, but I felt that it dragged a lot, and I don't know if I liked any of the characters. It's basically about the near future. I think it takes place in the US, and society is basically on the brink of collapsing because of climate catastrophes that have happened, and global warming, stuff like that. So yeah, that's basically what this is about. Moving on, we are almost done. V is one of the two letters that I don't have anything for. I have something at my parents' house, which is the Vinland Saga, but it's not here, and I have also not read it. W, I have something for W. Wherever You Go, There You Are by Jon Kabat-Zinn. This is another non-fiction book, and it's about mindfulness. You've probably heard about mindfulness. Jon Kabat-Zinn was basically, I think, the person or one of the persons who established mindfulness as a practice for treating patients with anxiety and stress. And mindfulness is very helpful for me for a lot of reasons, and I bought this I think, in 2013. It explains mindfulness in a very accessible way. So that was cool. And I kind of keep going back to this book. I also have like some, you know, markers here for things that I found remarkable or especially enjoyable, helpful, whatever. X is the second letter that I don't have anything for, which might not exactly be surprising. The last two surprised me that I have something for them. One is Y. For Y, I have the least expected book on my bookshelf, I guess. I'm very sure that, yeah, this is the book that you would expect least on my bookshelf, and it is Your Beauty Mark by Dita Von Teese. This is kind of a beauty guide thing, but not only. It also just has a bit of information about vintage style and vintage related topics. It also has a lot of high quality photographs which feature this woman here. And I'm kind of a fan of Dita Von Teese, so I also just enjoy the pictures, but I also enjoy the writing style and the actual content of the book as well. So, but I think nobody who knows me would actually expect this book to stand on my bookshelf. And I have read it like almost cover to cover. The last one, finally, Z. I didn't think I have a book for Z, but I do. It is Zero Waste Home by Bea Johnson. This is a practical guide for how you can create less waste in your home, and I have done some of the things. I think it is a good guide to creating less waste if you're interested in these topics. You might also know this book, but yeah. So those were all the letters of the alphabet, and me looking at for which letters I own books. This was also kind of an exercise in orientation on my bookshelf for me, because I don't know about you, but although you can pretty much read every title on the bookshelf because you see the spines, I tend to kind of forget what's on there. So now I have been made aware of some of the books that I haven't read yet. And it was kind of fun to just look how many letters I have. I hope you enjoyed this little chatty video where I just partly talk to you, partly talk to my bookshelf. And maybe I'll see you in the next one. Bye!